To start with, one thing I will say, this is his Kendrick Mr. Morale. This is about a man who is fighting with his own reflection and battling his own contradictions with how he feels about himself and the world. This album was not for us. It was for him. Selfish is the prime example of this. He's battling with his own insecurities, fears, the consequences of his own politics and the actions and the injustice of the world around him and his deteriorating relationships. I think it's his ego versus his compassion. For example, the lyric about breaking up with his ex by text, I would say it captures that pretty well, and that's a big strength across this entire album. What I will say though is an important weakness of this project: it's so unadventurous sonically and in other ways too. It's so on the nose and very textbook. It takes a very cliche and predictable approach. There's basically no surprises. He sticks with the piano melodies and the harp pretty much throughout in terms of the instrumentation. I mean, with James Blake and Paul McCartney on production across this thing, obviously it's going to lean very much into Britpop, but I feel like different soundscapes could have got across his emotional states and some of the ideas in a more interesting and maybe subversive way, but instead it's very much what you see is what you get. As much as the message of Fairchild is extremely important, specifically looking at rape culture and how that links to things like femcide and how our misogyny in our casual conversations can lead to things like domestic abuse being very normal and femcide being very normal. It tackles it in a way that's just about as on the nose as your average secondary school drama performance. It's just so on the nose in terms of how he decides to go about it. It's very much like, hey, here's some pianos, guys. This song is supposed to be really deep, so listen carefully, guys, because this is deep. Yes, the storytelling and in terms of the wave of words that Dave has, especially with Nicole's verse being layered on top of Dave's vocals in that way as well, is really good, and really giving her perspective hits at home, and it challenges the audience perspective on the matters. It yet again does it in the most on the nose way possible. However, I think this will still have the impact on the listeners and the kind of people he's trying to reach because of just where they're at regarding the issue itself. Another thing I will say about Fairchild, I feel a way about the fact that the word rape in the song was censored, because if we're making a song critiquing rape culture or making people aware of its existence and we can't say the word rape in the song to the point where we censor it, what are we really doing here? Like, in the words of Clue, what are we doing here? In some aspects, his pen game is pretty well polished, with 27th Birthday being one of his best lyrical showcasings in a while, like the Coca-Cola / Fanta holiday in Dubai sort of verse. And then him saying, like, of course, I'm not the problem, I lied to myself. It shows the level of introspection for sure, and that idea of how he's battling with himself, and also exposing that to the audience in a way and maybe getting them to do the same level of introspection that he is doing. On the other hand, there are some absolute nothing burger lyrics dotted all over the album, and you can even go as far as to say it's a bit fake deep. For example, the later your own funeral bar at the end of History, I'm sorry, but that bar is nonsense. No matter which way you slice it, that bar is pure nonsense. I'm not having it, and you will find plenty of other nonsensical lyrics posed to you as if it's some sort of deep, meaningful realization when really it's absolute rubbish. There's a couple of those bars across this thing, let's not lie. I'm gonna get woke with you guys for a second. You can skip to the conclusion if you don't want to get as woke as I'm about to get. But here we go. The introspection is really held back by him wanting to cling to the dogmas that make him who he is, even though they directly correlate to the problems he suffers with or the problems that he wants to speak about. 175 months is a great showing of a man grappling with his own faith, someone who veered from it before with the kind of lifestyle that he lives, and then him trying to return to it now and feeling guilty about that. But what it doesn't look into is what were the circumstances in which you obtained said faith in the first place? Why? What does that mean for you now? What has that meant for you across the time that you have been religious? And why do you think that you turning back to your faith is going to somehow be the solution to your problems? And why do you think that's the problem in the first place? That's a level of introspection that he wasn't willing to do, because mainstream rappers touching deconstruction, good luck. No Weapons with Jim Legacy kind of gets undermined with a distasteful reference about the Claire twins, despite the beautiful euphoria that Jim Legacy brings to the song. But you also can argue that the contradictions that you see in him aren't hidden. The whole point is that those contradictions of himself are laid bare for you to see. He's bearing them in a very vulnerable way, especially when you look at how those same contradictions and hypocrisy is something he points out in Fairchild by saying, well, I've made those kind of misogynistic songs before, whilst making those very same comments on the album that you're currently listening to. And I don't think it's a mistake. I think it's purposeful and intentional, and actually something that's pretty good. I think we should all confront our own hypocrisy and contradictions between our principles and our actions in the way that Dave is doing here. But what he fails to do is connect how his own machismo and his expression of heterosexuality in the very common way that it goes is the direct cause of his problems and why his relationships go to shit in a way that he feels guilty about on different songs. And it's also the reason why this man cannot write good romantic lyrics. He's like 0 for 3 for romance songs, good lord. When it comes to Rain Dance, Thames wasn't just the highlight of the song, she was the savior of the song, because that first verse, stiff. I'm sorry, but like, it's not romantic. It's more like, I saw you across the bar, let me hit you up for a second, rather than, yes, I am genuinely falling in love or in love with this woman. You're not buying it. But yet again, it's that image and machismo that he wants to hold on to with the ego that he has as a rapper, that he showed on other songs, that he wants to cling to, so he can't let it go to do the romantic song that he wants to try and make. Do you see where I'm getting at here? To conclude, overall, Dave's goal with this album is much different to previous albums. There's a lot of growing up that's definitely been done since his last 2 projects, and there's no bangers on here like Streatham, for example, or In the Fire. You won't really find that on here, but you will find a lot of things to sink your teeth into about how Dave, he sees himself, his internal conflicts, and how he sees the world and the conflicts that goes on in the world. But there's very many aspects where it's cowardly in its approach and unadventurous in its approach in some places, despite the bravery that he shows in others. So with all of that, it's introspective in a way that's very textbook. And as a result, I'm going to give this a B grade. I feel like, yes, this is going to be memorable in the grand scheme of Dave's career amongst Dave fans, as well as the timing in which this drops now. I think you'll still be probably thinking about this for a couple months at least. But I don't think it's really heralded as some of the best work in terms of conscious rap in the UK or in any bigger regard. It's still held back by quite a lot of things. So that's where I'm going to put it and where I'm going to leave this review.